dolls, inanimate objects, or are they? Their lifeless eyes stare, holding secrets, their porcelain skin cold and unsettling. I've always been drawn to the darkness, to the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. My fascination with haunted objects led me to them. Haunted dolls, each doll a vessel, a conduit to the other side. I had to know more. My journey began in a small town in New England, an old Victorian house shrouded in whispers and shadows. It was there I found her, in the dusty attic, tucked away in a decaying trunk. Her name was Emily, a once beautiful porcelain doll, now scarred by time. Her eyes, though cloudy, seemed to follow my every move. As I held her, I felt a cold shiver, a feeling of dread washing over me. The next doll I discovered in Salem, Massachusetts. This town, known for its infamous witch trials, holds a history steeped in mystery and the supernatural. As I walked through the dimly lit streets, the air seemed thick with the whispers of the past, tales of witches, curses, and restless spirits. The town's dark history whispered of witches and curses. Every corner seemed to echo with the cries of those who had suffered, and the shadows seemed to move with a life of their own. It was in this eerie atmosphere that I felt drawn to an old, weathered building, its sign barely legible in the fading light. In an antique shop, tucked away in a dark corner, I found him. The shop was filled with relics of the past, each item seemingly holding a story of its own. Dust motes danced in the beams of light that pierced the gloom, and the air was thick with the scent of aged wood and forgotten memories. A weathered sailor doll, his face frozen in a perpetual snarl. His clothes were tattered, and one of his eyes was missing, giving him a haunting, almost lifelike appearance. It was as if he had seen things that no one else could understand, and his expression seemed to warn of untold horrors. The shopkeeper told me his story. He was an old man, his eyes filled with the weight of many years. He spoke in hushed tones, as if afraid that the very walls might hear and reveal his secrets. He told me of a sailor who had once owned the doll, a man who had met a tragic end. A sailor lost at sea, his soul trapped in the doll. The sailor had been caught in a violent storm, his ship dashed against the rocks. As the waves claimed him, he clung to the doll, his last connection to the world of the living. It was said that his spirit had entered the doll, unable to find peace. That night at my hotel, the air grew cold. The temperature seemed to drop suddenly, and a chill ran down my spine. The room, which had been warm and inviting, now felt oppressive and filled with an unseen presence. I could feel eyes watching me, though I was alone. I heard the faint sound of waves crashing, the creaking of a ship's mast. The sounds were distant yet unmistakable, as if the sea itself had come to my room. The rhythmic crashing of the waves and the eerie creaking filled the silence, creating a sense of unease that was impossible to ignore. The sailor doll had brought his world to mine. As I looked at the doll, its single eyes seemed to glint in the dim light, and I could almost hear the sailor's voice, a whisper carried on the wind. The boundaries between our worlds had blurred, and I knew that the sailor's curse was now a part of my reality. The abandoned asylum stood on a windswept hill. Its crumbling walls held the memories of forgotten souls. It was there, in the asylum's former nursery, that I found her. Her eyes, wide and vacant, stared into nothingness. She was once the solace of a troubled child, now a vessel for something more sinister. The air grew heavy, suffocating. I felt a presence, cold and malevolent, watching me. I met the collector in a dimly lit shop filled with dolls. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and dust, and the dim lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls. Each doll seemed to have a story, a past that was both intriguing and unsettling. The shelves were lined with porcelain faces, each one more haunting than the last. His eyes gleamed with an unsettling light as he showed me his prized possession. There was something almost hypnotic about his gaze, a mix of passion and madness. He handled the doll with a reverence that bordered on obsession, his fingers tracing the delicate features as if it were a living being. The room seemed to grow colder as he spoke, his voice a low, almost reverent whisper. A jester doll, with a painted smile that seemed to mock me. Its eyes, though made of glass, seemed to follow my every move. The grin was wide and unsettling, as if it knew secrets I could never fathom. The collector's voice took on a darker tone as he recounted the doll's history, tales of misfortune and tragedy that seemed too bizarre to be true. The collector warned me of the doll's power, of the darkness it held. He spoke of previous owners who had met untimely ends, of strange occurrences that defied explanation. His words were filled with a mix of fear and fascination, as if he were both terrified and enthralled by the doll's malevolent presence. He urged me to be cautious, to respect the doll's power and the darkness it harbored. He told me of accidents, misfortunes that plagued those who dared to possess it. Stories of fires that started without cause, of illnesses that struck without warning. Each tale was more chilling than the last, painting a picture of a cursed object that brought nothing but despair. The doll, he said, was not just a toy, but a vessel for something far more sinister. I felt an overwhelming sense of unease, a primal instinct to flee. The room seemed to close in around me, the shadows growing darker and more oppressive. My heart raced, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. The collector's words echoed in my mind, a warning that I could not ignore. I knew then that this was no ordinary doll, and that its power was very real. The abandoned orphanage stood on a desolate island. Its rusted swing set creaked in the wind, a haunting melody in the silence. Inside, amongst the discarded toys, I found it. A teddy bear, its one button eye staring blankly ahead. The air was thick with sorrow, the palpable grief of forgotten children. As I held the bear, I heard whispers, children's laughter echoing through the empty halls. The old woman lived alone in a creaking house filled with dolls. Each room was a testament to her craft, with shelves and tables overflowing with her creations. The house itself seemed to breathe with the presence of these silent companions, their glassy eyes following you wherever you went. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and varnish, a constant reminder of the years she had spent perfecting her art. She was a doll maker, her creations both beautiful and unsettling. Each doll was meticulously crafted with delicate features and intricate clothing that spoke of a bygone era. Her hands moved with a practiced grace, each stitch and brushstroke a testament to her skill. The dolls seemed almost alive, their expressions so lifelike that it was easy to forget they were made of porcelain and cloth. She showed me her masterpiece, a lifelike doll that seemed to breathe. Its chest rose and fell with a rhythm that mimicked human respiration, and its eyes, though made of glass, seemed to hold a depth of emotion that was almost unsettling. The doll's skin was smooth and cool to the touch, and its hair, made from real human strands, flowed with a natural grace. Her eyes, a piercing blue, held a spark of something ancient. It was as if the doll had seen centuries pass, its gaze filled with wisdom and secrets long forgotten. The intensity of those eyes was mesmerizing, drawing you in and holding you captive. It was impossible to look away, and for a moment I felt as if I was staring into the soul of a living being. The doll maker told me she poured her heart and soul into her creations, that they were imbued with a piece of her own life force. Each doll was a part of her, a reflection of her innermost thoughts and emotions. She spoke of the process with a reverence that bordered on the spiritual, describing how she would spend hours in quiet contemplation before beginning her work. The act of creation was a sacred ritual, a way for her to connect with something greater than herself. I felt a strange connection to the doll, a sense of familiarity that both intrigued and frightened me. It was as if I had known the doll in another life, its presence stirring memories that lay buried deep within my subconscious. The feeling was both comforting and unsettling, a reminder of the thin veil that separates the living from the inanimate. As I stood there, staring into those piercing blue eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that the doll was watching me, understanding me in a way that no human ever could. In a forgotten corner of the library, I uncovered an ancient text. It spoke of haunted objects, of dolls imbued with spirits. As I read, I felt a presence in the room. The air grew cold, and the shadows seemed to dance. Looking up from the book, I saw my reflection in the glass case, but it wasn't me. The reflection was twisted, malevolent. Through my journey, I've encountered skepticism and fear, but I've also witnessed the undeniable. The cold chills, the whispers, the feeling of being watched. These haunted dolls are not mere toys. They are vessels, bridges between our world and the next. Each doll I encountered left an indelible mark, a chilling reminder that some things cannot be explained. What happens when we're gone? Do our energies linger, searching for a way back? These haunted dolls whisper that possibility. Their lifeless eyes seem to hold the answers to questions we dare not ask. My journey continues, each encounter drawing me deeper into the darkness. The search for truth, for proof of the paranormal, is a never-ending quest, and I won't stop until I find it.